Okay guys, this is a video on how I built a pecan cracker. What you saw at first at the introduction was me cutting some plate metal using a grinder and a cutoff wheel. And right here I'm cutting a skateboard wheel into a square, and this will serve as the axle housing. This is the actual axle housing here that I'm welding up with my MIG welder. This will hold the skateboard wheel that has been squared up that you saw in the previous shot. This will of course be welded to the pecan cracker, and this is what they look like after they've been welded. And this is a rack off of a bicycle, which happens to be 5/16 inch in diameter, which fits perfect in the skateboard wheel. That's going to serve as my axle, sort of like that. This is some 3-inch angle iron that is 1/4 inch thick that I'm going to use as the body of my pecan cracker. It's simply what I had left, and so this the measurements of those were 7.5 inches long, and this is, of course, like I said, 3-inch angle. What I've done here is welded a hinge to the top of one side of that angle iron on the inside, and I've taken a 3/8 inch piece of plate metal, and that's going to serve as the pecan strike plate, what I call, and I have a pin that I put in the hinge so that you can disassemble that strike plate if you need to. But what this strike plate will do will be, you'll be able to vary the angle of the strike plate so that you can crack pecans that are smaller as well as larger pecans. And you'll see a better view of that here in just a minute. This is just a video. I'm cutting the holes for the axles, and I used a unibit for that. They work really good for cutting hole in this 1/4 inch thick plate. Makes a real nice cut. This is a T-post that I built using my MIG welder, and the T-post nut is going to be what I use to adjust the angle of that strike plate that you saw earlier. And this is just a quick shot of me tacking the T-post to the outside of the pecan cracker. Sorry about the video there, a little shaky, but I'm doing all this by using one hand to weld, one hand to use the camera. It's just to give you some idea of what I've done to build this thing. This is a side view of that pecan cracker, and you can see that strike plate, how you can vary the angle using that T-post nut there that we built. And I'll use this top nut to tighten it once I get it set to the right depth, and that'll keep this strike plate from rattling whenever the pecan is being cracked. That's just a good side view of it. Alright, we're back to the axle. I cut 2.5 inch nails, and I'm just simply welding those to the axle. And here's kind of what they look like after it's been welded. I welded 4 nails on there. Again, this is not going to be high speed, so it doesn't have to be perfectly balanced. But that should crack the pecan, or at least I'm hoping so. Again, this is my first time to build one. And okay, so the axle is now in the pecan cracker, and you can see that I've welded the axle and the axle housing to the pecan cracker, and I think it's now time to give this thing a try after we get the other axle housing on there. And let's see what happens here. Yep, we're feeding the pecans through there, and they are actually being cracked. So that was pretty neat to see that it actually works. So this is a good view on the inside just to see how this pecan cracker works. You could theoretically place a hopper on the top, and that way you could dump all your pecans in at once, and it would just simply feed them in. However, I don't want to do that because I only crack about 5 gallons per year, and I wanted to keep the device as small as possible for storage. I'm using a 1/2-inch drill to crack these pecans. You can see how it works here. I've built some little supports so that the pecan cracker will sit on the 5-gallon bucket, and all you have to do is feed the pecans and run the drill, and then from there you have to shell all these pecans by hand, but at least you don't have to crack them. This is what it looks like after I've cleaned it up and painted it, after I've tested it to make sure it works. There's the supports welded on there. There's the T-post. There's the tensioning bolt. This is the top part of the strike plate and the hinge. And looking down through there, you can see how all that works. It's actually very simple. Anybody can do this. Again, I've got to give this idea of this project to 65Ford, and I'll place a link to his website, or correction, to his video, because I basically have copied this, only I've used a little bit different material than what he had used. Hope you enjoy, and I think you can build one of these. Shouldn't be too big of a problem. I did this on a Saturday evening.